Hello, welcome to LaunchLeft, a podcast, a label, an artist alliance, where famed creatives launch emerging artists. Today's guest is Arlo Parks.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey.
Nice to meet you over Zoom.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
I listened to your three songs you put out recently. Really, I think it was called At Home on Apple Music.
Yeah.
Really beautiful tracks.
Thank you.
Yeah, so such obviously simple arrangement. It was just you and guitar, I think, but really moving and deep. So thank you for making cool music.
Thank you for having me.
You haven't yet made a record, is that right? You're doing mostly been doing singles and little EPs.
Yeah, exactly. I've mainly I'm writing the album at the moment, but yeah, I just kind of been putting out little bits here and there.
And is your process pretty loner? Like, do you do it alone in your room? Is that really how you?
Yeah. I usually just write alone. Sometimes I'll write in the room, but it all kind of comes from poetry for me, and that's a really personal thing that I usually just do by myself.
So you write it as poems and then put it to music, or are you just saying that the lyrics are like poetry?
Oh no, I do write it as poetry first. So when I write a song, usually I'll write for like 5 minutes, just like a stream of consciousness thing, and then I'll pick out some images that I like and then kind of mold that into a poem and mold the poem into the lyrics. So it kind of is like quite a fluid process.
Well, that's a really interesting process. I love stream of consciousness. That's how I write as well. But I've never done that. For me, I need the melody of an instrument to kickstart the stream of consciousness.
Right.
So it's interesting. I've never done it as prose first on its own and then match that to...
Yeah. I think it's very good for like delving into the subconscious, and kind of when you're writing continuously, you have no time to overthink things. So it's always very raw. And I think it provides a good raw material for a song.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I know you said the weather is nice there. You've been, I assume, because of COVID, mostly home in the last chunk of time, a few months.
Yeah.
Has that increased your creativity, do you feel like? Or did it just, was there more apathy because of the unknowing of the situation? Different artists respond differently, so I'm always curious.
Yeah, I think for me, actually, I did have a kind of burst of creativity in the beginning, just because like everything did seem to be spiraling and there was so much chaos, that I felt like the only thing that I could be sure of was the fact that I could write and make music. And that's something that I think I clung on to in that time of like uncertainty. And I was like reading through old journals and just taking it as a time to reflect. And yeah, so I feel grateful actually that I was able to be creative, because a lot of my friends weren't able to do the same.
Have you written a lot of songs or poems that might be songs since?
Yeah. A lot. Yeah, I've been trying to write almost every day. And I've also just been really interested in the idea of like writing for the sake of it, just like writing a song and putting it in my voice notes and letting it sit there, just like not sharing it with anyone. The idea that like not all art has to be useful, you can just make things for the sake of it, has been something I've been connecting to.
Yeah, I love that. I think there are a lot of artists that do that. It's sort of what feeds you. It's part of nutrition, create, and it doesn't have to have there doesn't have to be an end to the means of creating. I think oftentimes we, feel that way, like, oh, I have to make a record, or I have to do, like, I haven't done anything in a month and I have to do more. And but I think a lot of artists that we haven't heard of yet, that LaunchLeft is always interested in, are the ones who are like quietly making art, craft, music, whatever it is, in the privacy of their own home without much attached to whether it sees the light of day or not. Like, to me, that's really interesting to find those artists, Well, you're really young, if I may say so. I believe you appear very young. And at what point did it kind of go from something you did at home to being more noticed and, encouraged, and people helping you to put your things out and make a record? How did that happen? Did you play open mic nights? Did you get discovered, or did you just do it and by chance somebody heard? Or?
Well, it was kind of like a mixture of several of those things. So basically I'd just been like making demos at home and like putting them out on SoundCloud. And there's this thing in the UK called BBC Introducing, where you can kind of upload demos for free, and then like kind of local DJs will like listen to it, and if they like it then they might play it, kind of thing. And then one of those DJs kind of liked one of my tracks and then introduced me to my now manager, and so it just kind of was like slow kind of snowballing. And then I started putting out music properly like a year after that, I'd say. So it was quite organic. I was still at school at that time. Yeah.
Wow, that's so lucky. Although it's not necessarily it's lucky, but it's also like you have to have moved people in order for that to happen. Do you know what I mean? It's not just like, oh, that just fell in your lap. It
is a mixture, I guess, though, because I often do find artists who are kind of still very underground, who are making absolutely beautiful music, but whose music may never kind of reach a wider audience because of, I don't know, I think there is an element of luck and like preparation for opportunities, I would say.
Yeah, and maybe a personality. I don't know if you have a personality that you're, feel ready to present publicly. You must, because you have, right? But I think for some artists, like we were talking about before, that just are happy to do it in their room and don't think of that, an outward outcome as much. Harder to be socially. I'm an artist and people are looking at me and listening. Scary. I think for some artists, they're super shy, even though they need to create. It's not necessarily something they want to promote.
I get what you mean.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting. I always find those artists super interesting because they're satisfied just making art without some external thing attached. At the same time, if we never get to hear it, then then I also feel like, well, it would be nice if they had somebody like you did who found you, enough to where you're able to do that. And you don't have to think like, oh, what's my outside image? What am I going to do? You just get to make your songs and somebody's supporting you and doing that. Every artist had that,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I'm fortunate just because like I feel like the image that I present to the world, as it were, is just kind of like how I am. Like I didn't really spend time kind of trying to craft a personality, as it were. I think my music kind of just lends itself to like honesty and transparency. So I'm just kind of like, this is me. I don't know.
Yeah, which makes it for good music, I think, and art. I feel like we're all actually much smarter than we give ourselves credit for. And when people are artificial or manufactured, it doesn't fit right.
Definitely. I agree.
I mean, maybe in the case of one or two dance songs, but usually those lyrics, even in that, have to be authentic and be coming from some place that everyone can relate to, and it's not fake. I think that's the mark of like a courageous artist for sure. Well, let's see. I ask a couple questions every time of these people, and one that the main one is, how did music find you?
How did music find me? Oh, that's interesting. I really like that question. Well, I think when I was very, very young, there was a lot of kind of jazz music playing in the house, and I think that kind of infiltrated my subconscious, as it were, when I was very young, because it just kind of was the soundtrack to my whole existence. Like there was always kind of radio playing in the house. And I think then, my uncle gave me his vinyl collection. So I think like it came through my family, even though none of my family made music. They were just kind of music lovers. And then I think as I got older, it just almost became my refuge. Like I was always the one actively kind of searching for new music, searching to unearth something that moved me in a certain way. But yeah, definitely my dad's jazz kind of kickstarted the journey, I would say.
Beautiful. And at what point did you start to actually play music yourself?
Well, yeah, I did some like piano lessons when I was younger, and then I decided I wanted to pick up the guitar when I was maybe like 13 or 14. And then I just started kind of making beats on GarageBand and like just kind of teaching myself a few chords. And then that just evolved into making fully fledged songs and stuff.
Wow, so you're kind of self-taught. You didn't take guitar lessons, or you just...
I did. Well, the thing is, I did lessons in both piano and guitar, but I stopped very quickly because they were like, maybe you should do these grades or like do this classical thing. And I was like, I'm not really sure about that. That was not really my thing. And then I just, on YouTube and stuff, there are plenty of videos where you can learn stuff. And just by playing along to songs that I liked and stuff, that kind of got me places more than lessons ever could have, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess I recently was made ambassador for this charity called Calm, which is like a kind of mental health charity. And I feel like, I don't know, things like that have just made me feel like I'm really helping people, if that makes sense. Like playing shows and seeing the people in the crowd, I can tell that I'm moving people in some way, but being part of something like that made me feel like I was properly able to make a difference. And I feel like opening up conversations about things like mental health is so important, and making people feel less alone is kind of part of why I make music, I would say.
Yeah, well, that was kind of my last question, was about, or my second question, I should say, of the two I always ask, which was about activism, like what's your form of activism? And it sounds like that you touched on that a little bit. Is there something specific that you're like feel more, as well? You're welcome to have more than one form or none at all. It's
yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think I do most of my work, as it were, like away from social media and stuff like that. I mean, I think recently it's been, with everything that's happened in terms of like the Black Lives Matter movement being at the forefront of people's minds, it's been strange to kind of have, not strange, like it's been an amazing thing to have a platform, but I've had to really kind of consider what I'm going to say and what kind of causes I'm going to champion and stuff. And I think kind of by like guiding my listeners and my fans to certain organizations and charities, Black Minds Matter and that kind of thing, and by kind of trying to share resources with people and lead by example in terms of, like donating and championing Black artistry and stuff, I feel like that's been something that's been actually a more recent thing, but I think that form of activism kind of strikes me as a positive one, and I try and kind of encourage a safe space for discussion within my fan base, I would say.
Which is really important, is that idea of a safe space in general, because I think people, I don't know if you noticed this about Western culture, but it's very blamey. You know what I mean? Everybody like is doing something better than you're doing, or saying like, it seems like there's a lot of pointing fingers, like that's sort of the way we roll. Rarely is there a lot of focus on responsibility, like self-responsibility. What can I, like what am I missing? What am I not taking care of? As opposed to outwardly looking at someone else's behavior and saying they could do that better. I would, it seems very common in our culture to point fingers as opposed to look in the mirror.
Yeah. I mean, I think weirdly, like this time, like people have been spending a lot of time inside with themselves. And I think there has been like, I mean, a lot of people that I've spoken to have said that they've kind of learned a lot about themselves and how they process things and how they deal with feeling like they're out of control, and how they, you know, they've been able to observe their moods and their needs a little bit better in this time, which I think has been an interesting positive. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I do think there is that confluence of events between, you know, everybody being inside and then, you know, because of COVID-19, but then and then the amazing awakening, and just like can't avoid looking at, you know, racial injustice that, like, together with being inside really made people look at it in a way that I'm not sure if they were busy doing their lives. You know, certainly for those of us who identify as white, I think there was like no way to not take a look and begin to like look at what responsibility we've had by just not noticing it before. And now, you know, so it's really put it front and center, and it's not going anywhere. I hope, like, I don't want anyone to suddenly become apathetic to something as important as people's lives. You know what I mean? And it feels sort of like there's a big turning point that happened, and there's no going back. It is my wish and hope that there is no and I don't think we should go back. And, but it's definitely, it feels like something has changed forever in the psyche of our culture. And, and now it's the part where everyone has to take responsibility and do the work. And that's where we lose people, right? That's usually where people like suddenly get too busy.
Yeah.
It's like looking in the mirror, not out the window. And I think that's really difficult in our culture, because we, like I said, I think it's supported to place blame and look outward and look out the window and not in the mirror. So this time has kind of forced that self-reflection, I think.
I agree.
I also feel like whatever artists are creating joy out there, and like we need a good summer dance song.
Yeah.
Everybody can like jump around their room and create joy with. So.
Definitely. I think it's going to be, the art that comes out of this period is going to be very interesting. I definitely think there's going to be an introspective kind of tint to it, I would say. Because it's strange, like, I don't think I've ever experienced a time when there is this kind of sense of like something so universal, like everyone in the world is in their houses, you know what I mean? I don't think that's ever happened.
No, that's what was kind of remarkable, is the entire world shut down. It wasn't just one country, or you know what I mean? That is solidarity. That's one thing that we all shared, right? That and the wish to be happy and not lose our loved ones, right? Like, there's a lot we share, but I think sometimes we forget about that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I've definitely, like, I've been trying to kind of practice gratitude, like gratitude for my health and for the fact that I can work from home, and for, you know, I've just learned to appreciate little things. I remember when we were only allowed out once a day, and I would just kind of go for walks, and I would like look at the flowers, and I'd probably like look at the sky and look at things and just enjoy everything a little bit more, which sounds strange, but yeah.
No, absolutely. I think, you know, when things are restricted, we appreciate them that much more.
Definitely.
Taking nature for granted has been an ongoing problem, I think.
Definitely. I agree.
This has also kind of made us appreciate outside and nature. Right?
Definitely, yeah, you're right.
So much. Well, I am just so look forward to hearing your record or EP, whatever is going. You said you're making a record, I think.
Yeah, I'm writing that. I mean, it's still in its kind of nebulous stages, but I'll have music out coming out pretty soon.
That's great. Well, I can't wait to hear it. I really love your voice and what you're talking about. I think you know, the world needs more artists like you. So thank you for sharing your life.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. you can't let go of anything at the moment. Just know it won't hurt so. Won't hurt so much forever. It won't hurt so much. Won't hurt so much forever. It won't hurt so much. Won't hurt so much. Charlie melting to his mattress, watching Twin Peaks on his ones. Then his fingers find the bottle when he starts to miss his mum. Wouldn't it be lovely to feel something for once? Yeah, wouldn't it be lovely to feel worth something home? I know you can't let go of anything at the moment. Just know it won't hurt so. Won't hurt so much forever. It won't hurt so much. Won't hurt so much forever. It won't hurt so much. Won't hurt so much. Charlie started seeing stars, so stuck on the new J-pole. Said my clothes are sticking to me and I can't quite see my walls. Started dreaming of a house with red carnations by the windows, where he didn't feel so small, so overwhelmed by all his flaws. I know you can't let go of anything at the moment. Just know it won't hurt so. Won't hurt so much forever. It won't hurt so much. Won't hurt so much forever. It won't hurt so much. Won't hurt so much forever. I know you can't let go of anything at the moment. Just know it won't hurt so. Won't hurt so much forever. It won't hurt so much. Won't hurt so much forever. It won't hurt so much. Won't hurt so much. I know you can't let go of anything at the moment. Just know it won't hurt so. Won't hurt so much forever. It won't hurt so much. Won't hurt so much forever. It won't hurt so much. Won't hurt so much.
LaunchLeft aims to create an intentional space that highlights and empowers all artists for whom radical creativity is not a choice, but a necessity. LaunchLeft begins with music, but its ultimate aim is to launch left-of-center artists in all creative fields.